It's been a while since people have been talking about how trash Marvel has become in the latest years with its need to fill its platforms with content related to movies and shows, and I agree, a lot of them are actually trash. WandaVision ended up being a huge meh. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was underwhelming, Hawkeye was a huge disappointment, Miss Marvel was boring, and She-Hulk was an abomination. I say that the big revelations have been Moon Knight and What If, but I was not expecting Loki to be a top tier in storytelling, not just for Marvel standards, but for any show ever. And I'm not exaggerating either because Loki has been a character I was getting really tired of after being used for so many years. He died in Infinity War and you brought him back in Endgame. Like, how much more were these people on Marvel going to milk this character? Well, the answer for that is a lot, and thank God they did it because the first season of Loki was shocking, devastating, well crafted, and even did something I never thought it would be possible. They made a variant of Loki that basically wears the cheapest cosplay outfit of Loki that you can get at a flea market and made him steal the entire show in just one single episode. The plot is about Loki being captured by an association called the TVA, who are responsible of protecting the sacred timeline, a string of events crafted to preserve the integrity of linearity in time and space. Loki is basically captured because, well, he escaped in Endgame when, according to the TVA, he was not supposed to. Like, he interrupted a canon event and was then sentenced for it. But this show revolves about capturing other Loki variants because apparently they basically fuck up everything, everywhere, every time. And the show is about capturing the most dangerous Loki variant. For that to happen, they need to travel across different universes and timelines to protect the flow of time. Something that impressed me a lot about this show is how they managed to get an already very charismatic antagonist and pumped his arc to 11 in a show that tackles science fiction and philosophy in such a flawless manner. You can get one episode where they do two things here and there, and the next episode leaves you with a riddle based on what happened before and set expectations for the rest of the season. Also, can I mention how well every single actor is? Like, Owen Wilson as Mobius nails the character. Tom Hiddleston as Loki is spectacular. Sofia Di Martino as Sylvie is just adorable, tragic and very relatable. Gugum Bataro as Ravonna is simply very easy to hate as an antagonist, and Jonathan Mayers as He Who Remains and Victor Timely is phenomenal. You also have B-15, Ouroboros, Casey and many other important characters that are simply colorful and incredibly well crafted for every single moment they are on screen. Now, in a typical Marvel fashion, there was always going to be humor inserted because, why not, right? It's Marvel after all. But here, it never seemed forced or cartoony in my opinion. Unlike in the first Avenger, where Loki had intentionally funny scenes, here Tom Hiddleston manages to have unintentionally funny moments where the character is genuinely baffled, confused, tired and annoyed by certain circumstances happening around him, rather than trying to squeeze a laughter from the audience in an unnecessary manner. Still, the show doesn't come out with its flaws here and there, like slow pacing for certain episodes or dialogues that could have been executed better, but these are very minor compared to the positive aspects of this show. Even moments where you feel like the dialogue makes absolutely no sense, things end up making sense the next chapter because of new information added that connects to that specific dialogue. And that's another drawback of this show, which is not related to the content itself, but the company that produces it. Loki is not a show to watch while waiting for the next episode every week because it's very convoluted in a good way, and some things may be missed because people may have a hard time keeping up with what happened and what's going to happen in the future. I'm certain of this because I'm one of them. Luckily, every single episode does a short recap at the beginning that is actually useful, and instead of doing a recap of the last episode, they do a recap of the most important aspects that will happen in the current episode. This is genius in my opinion, but I would still recommend you to watch it once the entire season is out rather than waiting for every week's episode like I did. And yes, this is an S-tier show in my opinion. With the amount of cheesy and poorly written shows and movies we've got over the years, joined with the superhero fatigue that a lot of people are experiencing, this is truly a breath of fresh air and I definitely recommend you to watch it. Now, I know that you might be thinking why I haven't talked about the plot of this show in detail, and there's a reason for that. You see, this show tackles aspects of travel through time and space while also being connected to different alternate dimensions. These are very complicated concepts just to encapsulate in a single review and requires its own video to be fully explained. But you don't need to do so in order to watch this show because, at least in the first episodes, it holds your hand throughout the journey. An example of this is the very first episode of the show where you can see that this Loki variant is one that still craves for the Infinity Stones. You know, the ones Thanos used to snap and wipe half of the population of the universe. Anyway, in this place where he lands called the TVA, you can see how every member of the TVA has these stones in their desks because they are useless. Like, there are no more important than a clip or a piece of paper. This does not nullify the entire Infinity Saga from Marvel, but instead shows you that what Loki is about to face is far more powerful and dangerous than that. This is not about a tool that can annihilate everyone in the universe, but rather something that could alter and demolish entire realities, timelines, other universes, and more with less than that. And the character of He Who Remains is actually a terrifying concept because rather than being a dictator with huge amounts of power, he's already done everything he needed to do millions of times already, making sure that every minuscule detail has been perfected and applied to perfection. It's like it's telling you to your face, sure, try as much as you want, I've already won even before you ever existed, and that's an excellent writing for this character. And no, trust me, I haven't spoiled you at all. There is still so much in this show to explore that I genuinely felt blown away when watching it with my brother. There was so much happening and so many things to connect at once that you're still left with a lot of questions and theories about what's to come. At first, I thought that Loki was going to be tied to What If and Moon Knight as the best Marvel shows, but I genuinely think that it surpassed them by a lot. Like, What If ended up being a huge surprise because the premise is not truly what it seems and catches you off guard in the last second. Moon Knight was an exemplary introduction to a character that was not so well known by newcomers like me, but Loki does so much more, and I mean it, so much more, and you still can't get enough. And by the way, take it from someone who genuinely thought that a show about Loki was unnecessary. I was actually burned out by the amount of Loki content we have had for years, and I was like, give us new villains already! And I have to swallow my own words now. This show ended up being goated in every possible sense, and I definitely recommend it. Even if you're not really a Marvel fan, as a science fiction show is perfect as well. And to top it all off, the first season ended up in a very high note that blew my mind away, and I didn't know how they were going to surpass it. Well, they did it in the second season. You thought it would be slightly worse, but man, it takes place literally after the first season and it all comes down as a huge, big story divided in parts rather than periods of time between seasons. But I think I rambled enough about Marvel. I just wanted to say this because this is one of the few genuine shows that I would recommend to any science fiction lover like me. Give it a shot. This has been Juano, and thank you for watching.